All right, so today was a remarkable day because I had almost nothing but good news to talk about in my daily brief. And here in the actually four big stories today, I get to lead with this, something that we've all been waiting for a long time. Ukraine gets its first F-16 fighter jet delivery from NATO after a long wait. Like it's actually there. Now, about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, Dmitry Kuleba said they have fulfilled their promises, like suggesting that they are there. They're there now. They're actually there. And first delivery of F-16 fighter jets from NATO allies has arrived. The delivery came just ahead of the deadline of transfer for fighters, and it wasn't clear whether the pilots will be able to jump in the cockpits and enter the battle, or if more training is required. Here it is, Anton Gershchenko talking about Ukraine received the first batch of F-16s, according to Bloomberg. It's a small amount of aircraft, according to the media, so it's not like you've gotten 100 of these. I don't know that they're going to get 100 of these, but even a few of these is going to start to push the Russians back once they get up in the air and get moving. It would be great to get a lot of them out there sooner than later, but some have arrived. The first batch of F-16 fighter jets have arrived in Ukraine. Bloomberg sources say that the Western allies committed to delivering the first F-16s by the end of July and met that timetable. Well, it's July 31st, so just barely, but they met it. They described the number of aircraft as small. So I don't know how many that means, but there are some there. The sources did not specify whether Ukrainian pilots who were trained to fly the F-16s would be permitted to use the transferred planes right away, or if they would have to wait. Okay, so there we are, and you're seeing this in a number of reputable news sources. So they're there. So it's time to celebrate that. Okay. Big story number 2. When dictators fall, a decisive moment is when the military intelligence switches sides. 2 army captains to their soldiers, it's time to make the right decision. At a historical moment, it's clear we have a new president-elect. Now, this is in Venezuela, but I don't know that 2 army captains are enough to actually make any kind of difference. It appears that the people are pretty upset about the would-be stolen election in Venezuela. So this is saying, so beautiful, Maduro is done. I'm not sure about that. Dictators tend to really work right up to the end. So I wouldn't say he's necessarily done. Jason J. Smart, have you ever seen a political rally like this? Hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans are demanding their rights to free elections and free speech. Now is the time for the US and EU to back the protesters, thereby backing freedom and democracy. So it looks like the election went to Maduro's opponent, and then Maduro, who owns the levers that are controlling the election, said, "We won. Guess what?" But it's not so simple. The Carter Center is unable to verify Venezuelan election results. They blast officials for lack of transparency. So here, Caracas, Venezuela, the Carter Center, that's named after Jimmy Carter, I believe, in Atlanta, said it was unable to verify the results of Venezuela's presidential election, blaming authorities for a complete lack of transparency in declaring Maduro the winner without providing any individual polling tallies. Well, that's kind of important to show like how many people voted where. Apparently, one source said that 109% of the population voted. That seems a little high. The electoral authorities' failure to announce disaggregated results by polling station constitutes a serious breach of electoral principles, the Carter Center said. The group, which had a technical mission of 17 experts spread out in 4 cities across Venezuela, added that the election did not meet international standards and, quote, cannot be considered democratic, unquote. That's really interesting because the pushback from RT, who, by the way, Russia is congratulating fellow dictators on this, the pushback from RT was saying that it's the West attempting a media coup, says the Venezuelan defense minister. Nationwide protests over Maduro's re-election are part of a U.S.-backed plan. Sure. So you try to steal election and the United States is the bad guy. Venezuelan defense minister has accused the Western-backed opposition of attempting a media coup and condemned widespread rioting in the wake of President Maduro's election victory. Well, it wasn't his election victory. You have to actually win to have a victory. Election theft or fraud or whatever it is. Protests erupted after the National Electoral Authority declared victory for the incumbent president on Monday. Of course, those guys are all in Maduro's pocket. We are witnessing fascism at its maximum expression. Well, they are, but it's not the way that they mean it. They're saying that this trying to overturn his victory is fascism. What's fascism is claiming that you won if you didn't really win. While pledging that any coup attempts will be quashed, he called for dialogue and urged all political forces to follow the laws of Venezuela and take the path of democracy. Well, the path of democracy is free, open, fair, provable elections. As is well known, history has reliably demonstrated that the path of violence does not lead to anything positive. That's the first true thing he said here, that they shouldn't be violent, but they should protest, they should be out in the streets, they should be demanding a free and fair election. Anton Gurushenko again, I wonder which of these countries has a plane ready to take Nicolas Maduro out of Venezuela. And he goes back to a tweet from the day before. Among the countries that congratulated Maduro on his declared re-election are Russia, China, Cuba, Syria, and Serbia, like Belarus. Like, look at the cast of characters that's supporting it and saying, this is a good election, this is a valid result, and you can kind of see why people are skeptical. Now, this isn't important directly to Ukraine, but it's the same kind of thing. You can't let dictators do this kind of thing, or the international order kind of trembles under it. Okay, let's go to the next big story. Hamas terror group leader Ismail Haniyeh assassinated in Tehran missile strike. His death was confirmed by representatives of Hamas. So there are people flipping out about this. Oh, those bad Israelis are doing this. Well, let's look at a little bit more to the story. The elimination of Hamas terrorist political leader. The U.S. supported Israel while Russia and Turkey mourned. So I understand Turkey mourning, but why Russia? Why is Russia wanting to support this guy? U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, quote, Israel will do whatever it's necessary to defend itself, and it has demonstrated that repeatedly. We have made a commitment to help Israel defend itself, whatever the cost. You may or may not like that, but that's the U.S. policy position. But why are the Russians weighing in supporting this guy? Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov said, this is an absolutely unacceptable political assassination, and it will lead to further escalations of tensions. Well, but who is this guy? Well, Hezbollah military commander claimed killed by Israel was blamed for the U.S. 1983 Marine bombing. Do you remember that in the 1980s? The bombing of a Marine barracks? Okay, so he's not a good guy. The Hezbollah commander, who the Israeli military says it killed in an airstrike on Tuesday, had been blamed by Israel for a deadly weekend rocket attack and was accused by the U.S. of orchestrating the 1983 bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American servicemen. Okay, so, I mean, that's kind of where we are with that. All right. At the same time, Iran is raising a red flag of revenge on the dome of the Jamkaran Mosque. I'd never heard of a red flag of revenge, but apparently that's a thing. I see it in a couple of sources, but not like AP. It's other news sources. Okay, so there's that. Okay, last big story. Ukraine may have just scored its longest range drone strike yet in Russian territory. A Tu-22 M3 supersonic bomber about 1,100 miles away. That's a long way. And so this is the airfield in which it was claimed to be hit. This is the Kyiv Independent. Ukraine damaged this Tu-22 M3 bomber. Now, there's a couple of things about this bomber that's really important here. Russia's defense ministry said it shot down 12 kamikaze drones in 5 regions, including Kursk, Belgorod, Rostov, Bryansk, and Lipetsk on 27 July. So this happened just a few days ago. Okay, the damage dealt to the aircraft as the Tu-22 M3 bomber is vital. Here's why. Because the Russian military-industrial sector currently does not have the means to produce such equipment. Okay, so they can't replace it, so that's important. And then this is something that the Soviet Union could produce, and that's why Russian forces, are trying to hide them so far away. So that's a big thing number 2. They're trying to push them far away so they can't be hit. And then big thing number 3 is they actually hit it. Like that far inland, the Ukrainians have been able to do it. Just imagine if they were able to use American and other Western weapons in this process, what they would be able to do to back the Russians way up. The Olenia airfield, where the 22 M3 was hit, is located again about a little over 1,100 miles from the Ukrainian border. So that's pretty significant. Okay, I saw this and I thought, Vlad's right as usual. It says, controversial opinion: to beat Trump, you can't make the election about saving democracy. Now think about that. You can't be like, well, we just have to save democracy or it's over. Or we're dead. Okay, don't do that. To beat him, talk about his issues, talk about his character, talk about all the other things that are there. But if you overblow it, or you're going to turn off people that are like, no, it's not really about that. Some people believe that. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are going to be turned off in that process. Trump is a semi-existential threat to U.S. democracy. He's a bad guy who is probably not healthy for the Republican Party. He's not healthy for the United States. I wish we had a better candidate on the Republican side, and we just don't. And yeah, so I understand all those arguments, but to say that this is going to be the last election that you ever have is going to do more damage than it's going to help. Trump is a semi-existential threat to U.S. democracy, but leading with that argument corrodes trust and increases Trump's chances of winning. And you're probably not trying to increase Trump's chances of winning if you're on the other side of that equation and you want him to lose, right? So, and again, I saw that and I thought, yeah, let's put that out near the end of this. I put this on my page, my posts page on YouTube a little while ago, just a few hours ago. I said, this is a one-issue channel. I support Ukraine. What do you think I'm attempting to do in my presentations when I speak about Trump and Harris? Do you think I'm trying to like, go Trump or go Harris? Or what do you think I'm trying to do? So actively promoting Harris for president, passively supporting the Democrats by not supporting Trump, trying to provide context, not advocating for either candidate, passively supporting the Republicans by not supporting Harris, which is just the flip side of this one, and actively supporting Trump for president, which is the flip side of this one. So most of you understand what I'm trying to do. 65% of you understand. I'm trying to provide context to help you understand what's happening. Here's how Republicans see this, here's how Democrats see this, and here's how this might play out. Just that's what a professor would do, right? I'm not actively or even passively trying to support this one or that one. Now, I figured about 20%, and it is about 20%, thinks I'm either 17% passively and 3% actively supporting Trump. But I'm surprised that even 16% on the other side think that I'm passively or actively supporting Harris. I'm not supporting either of them. I'm just trying to explain what's going on. That's all. That's how I see my role as far as this goes. And I'm only doing this because it's important to what's going to happen in Ukraine. And I think that Trump is a wild card, but I wouldn't bet on him to be a better proponent for Ukraine than what Harris, who is unproven, who will probably do something similar to what the Biden administration has done, has been at least standing with Ukraine if they're slow-walking material aid there, including jets that just arrived that should have arrived a year and a half ago. So I'm just trying to explain what's going on. Okay, second poll that I put out just with that. How accurate are my presentations about Ukraine? I try to explain how Republicans and Democrats see things differently. I try to show international events or how international events are shaping or could shape the war in Ukraine. I'm trying to explain context. I have a conservative perspective, and this affects which stories I choose, but I qualify when I assert my opinion. I say, like, look, this is how I see it. Versus objective facts. And I not only cite, but I highlight my sources. Maybe I do it even too much because I like read things because I'm like, I want to prove to you, yes, this is from this article. I'm not just making it up. So how accurate do you feel my presentations are? And I fully trust your presentations to be accurate, 47%. I trust you to present accurately, but you see or miss things, 36%. So between those two of them, these two together, it's about 80%, right? Another 12% are skeptical because of my worldview, but you appear sound. Right. And I lay those cards on the table. I tell you right up front, I'm a conservative. I'm not doing that because I want to say I'm a conservative and you should be too. I'm just saying, here's where I'm coming from. And then I have 5% that say either you pretend to be neutral while you have a hidden MAGA agenda. 4%, it's not. It's not. Okay. Or you're outright shilling for MAGA as you talk about Ukraine at 1%. So I'm glad the vast majority, about 80% of you, can trust what I'm saying. But if I were to put myself, if I were to have clicked on this, I would have put, I trust you present accurately, but you see or miss things. And that's because through my worldview, I see certain things as salient, just like somebody on the other side, on the liberal side of this, might see some other issue as more salient, which is why I argue that you ought to not just watch me, but watch somebody on the other side and then triangulate on what's going on and make up your own mind and think through it for yourself. Okay, last little bit I want to show you is this. I saw this at the, this was on Nexta. Athletes from North and South Korea took selfies together at the award ceremony at the Paris Olympics. They took selfies with athletes from China after the doubles tennis competition. Chinese won the gold, North Koreans won the silver, bronze medal went to athletes from South Korea. And even the North and South Koreans are able to get along at the election. I think this is how most of the population is. We can get along. It's our leaders that are kind of making things pretty precarious and irritating and agitating and that sort of thing. But I think, you know, when you're just hanging out at the store or the pool or whatever, we get along. So we should try to do more of that and try to get along. Anyway, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. F-16s have arrived in Ukraine. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.